Of course, I'm Ed Frawley, and I own Leerburg. Today's Q&A is probably it's a really good Q&A for people that get older rescue dogs, because this is about some folks that rescued an 8-year-old hunting dog, a retriever, and they have problems with a recall. So we're going to talk about it, and then we'll give you some ideas. So let's see what she says. I'll read this to you. I have a pointer, and when I walk her, I can't let her off leash when we're out in the woods. She becomes focused on smells in the bushes and not responsive to commands. I know that her instinct is to hunt, and she is so focused on the smells around her, she just ignores me. We recently adopted her, and she's 8 years old, so we don't know how much training she's already had. She's a really good dog with recalls at home and in the yard, except a couple of times when she wandered away and went to the woods, which was across the road. She didn't come back when we repeatedly called for her to come. Do you have suggestions on how to train her? We don't plan to use her for hunting at all, just going on walks and hikes. Do you think we should train her with a remote collar? Thank you. Good questions. Really common question. You don't start a training program out on a dog like this with a remote collar. It's such a common mistake that people make. And it's a terrible mistake because it destroys your relationship with your dog when you introduce a remote collar the wrong way. So what we would do is, I'm not going to go through the online course that I produced a couple years ago. It's an extensive, long course with a ton of steps in it on teaching your dog to come when called. And in the end of that course, once the people have progressed up the ladder in the various training steps, I talk about how to pair a remote collar to a dog, and then how to slowly introduce a remote collar so that it doesn't hurt your relationship, and so you can learn what level of stimulation to use to remind a dog, hey, you know how to come, I'm being fair with you, you can't just blow me off, you're going to get a correction. And when you do it correctly, you're not going to hurt your relationship with your dog. You're going to have a happy dog. But like Cindy said, genetics and past experience with an 8-year-old dog is a hard road to go. You're not going to train this dog as fast as you would a young dog, a young puppy, when you're training it to come at 6, 8, 9, 10, 12 months old. That's going to go a lot faster. This is going to take a long time to fix this dog. And people that get in a hurry and want to test their training are going to set their training way back, because the dog's going to take off, and then you're going to have a problem, and then you're going to have to force her to come back or get her in trouble to come back, and there goes your relationship with the dog. So take your time and take it through it. I explained all this stuff in the course I did, but this reminds me that I haven't mentioned it. Keep in mind that when you're training these various training steps, you don't do it out in the woods. You got to start doing it in the backyard. As this lady said, it works well in the backyard, but it must not be a fenced backyard because the dog took off and ran across the road. It's a mistake to take this dog to a new location too quickly. You have your training area at home. I would be training this dog for a long time in my backyard, on leash in the backyard, and all the exercises that I did with the dog for exercise, walks, would be on leash. She would get exercised, but it would be an on leash exercise, not off leash. And I would train her in the backyard until I had her doing a reflexive recall on a 6-foot leash, and then a 30-foot leash or a 20-foot leash. Do it on leash, take it through all the on leash steps, and build a reflexive recall. And what is that? We have videos on it. I think we've done some YouTube videos or videos on Leerburg.com to demonstrate Cindy's dogs on a reflexive recall. And that's where she'll be walking a dog, one of our dogs, on leash, and it's gone through all the training, and we'll say, Pip, come, and the dog it doesn't think about what it's doing, it just turns and comes, because good things have always happened, and it knows that it's supposed to do that, and it knows that if it doesn't do it, they're going to get a little pop on the leash to remind them, hey, I told you to come, and when you come, we're going to give you high-value food rewards. not dog chow, high value food rewards for those that aren't familiar with training with food. And then when the time came to get a remote collar, there's a lot of cheap collars out there that you don't want to get. Get a good quality collar, because some of these cheap ones are not consistent in the level of stimulation. So you might think you're at, say, level 20 out of 100 or level 20 out of 127, and you give it a stimulation and it's a cheap collar and it might zing them at level 75. Those are just examples. I'm just saying a lot of the cheap ones are not consistent in stimulation, and to have an effective remote collar training program, you have to have a good collar that's always going to give the same level of stimulation. Cindy does make the point as she goes through this that I've already mentioned too, that don't get in a hurry. Take the time it takes to do it correctly, and don't test your training too quickly. People really want to think, oh, my dog's getting trained, she's doing such a good job, I'm going to take her outside, I'm going to go without a leash, or I'm going to cut her loose because she'll come back. Yeah, right up to the point where she won't. This dog, if you can't get this dog, if you can't call this dog away from, say, a squirrel, shouldn't be off leash. Not ever. Not ever. Because what happens if it chases a squirrel, and then it chases a rabbit, and then it chases a deer, and then it's a mile and a half away, and you have no control over the dog at all? So she says, this may take months, and it may not ever happen. We can't tell you that you're going to train this dog to come all the time. Maybe if you do it with all the various steps, and you take your time, and you layer in the remote collar, and you're going to have to probably use a little bit higher levels of stimulation when you're in a new location under high levels of distraction. You're probably going to have to crank that collar up. People that have these remote collars think, okay, my dog works just fine at level 30. That's fine. In your backyard at level 30 or level 20, might work just fine. But if you take it someplace where there's higher levels of distraction, like are not in a dog park, but outside of a dog park, and you want to call the dog away from that dog park, you might have to crank it up. I can't tell you how far. It all depends on the dog and the level of distraction and the environment that you're in. So if you have a recall issue on your dog, get the online course I did. It's a really good course. We don't have any questions on it. It's an extensive course. But anybody that tells you you're going to train your dog to come in 2 weeks is full of beans. You know, that's the problem that I have with a lot of these local 8-week training courses that people can go to. You can't train your dog. There's no way that this person could train this dog to come in 8 weeks. Ain't going to happen. So, with that said, on to the next one.